Welcome to a live edition of the Fly the W670 podcast. Dustin Rhodes and Crawly here. It's season 2. It is episode 85. Crawly, we knew we were going to talk today, but we didn't know we were going to talk about this. David Ross is out. Craig Counsell is in. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be popping champagne or drinking as many Bud Heavies as possible. I've got my kids' David Ross jersey hanging behind me. I have very, very mixed emotions right now, Crawly, and I know you are absolutely excited and clicking your heels a la Ron Santo.
I could not be more excited. You know, like you said, we were going to talk. You write these scripts, and then every now and then you just got to crumple up and throw them out. I don't know if anybody predicted this happening, but this Dustin was about as stunning as a Cubs. I was thinking about this the other day. When I think about like news that absolutely stunned me, that just absolutely shocked me. The last time I could think of something was when the Cubs got rid of Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo all in 24 hours. I thought that they would keep one of them, and then that was just shocking to me. But this is definitely up in there as well.
Well, would you compare it? One of the immediate comparisons is obviously Ricky Renteria's here. They go out and they get Joe Maddon. And then a few years later, the rest is history. Would you compare it to that, or do you think that's not equal apples and oranges, or is it apples to apples?
Well, I think it's 100% apples to apples. It's, you know, when I looked at that, and this was Ricky Renteria, end of 2014 season, everything's going great. Ricky's going to be back, and then Joe Maddon happened to be available. And that was it. That was the move. And you had to make that because that was a difference-making manager right there. And so what's going to end up happening is that they get him and they fire Renteria, but that really kind of started that domino effect of getting Lester spending money. That was the signal that the Cubs were ready. And I feel that this is the exact same thing. We talked about this a lot, Dustin. For the moment that the Brewers did not have Counsell under contract, I talked about it all year on the Fly the W, all season 2. Craig Counsell, Craig Counsell, Craig Counsell. My fear was he's going to go to the Mets and Big Daddy Steve Cohen was going to put down the big money, and that was going to be that. And, you know, I didn't think that the way that it was work, I thought he was going to be going with David Stearns in New York. So, you know, I was just hoping, and I never really thought it was going to happen, to be honest with you. So,
well, he clearly didn't want to go to New York. I'm sure it's not about the cash. I can't imagine that the Mets owner would let himself be outbid by the Ricketts family. I don't think it's about the money. He has 4 children. 2 are playing baseball in the Big Ten, 2 daughters still in high school. He's 90 minutes away in Chicago, and he's gone half the year anyway because he's on the road doing his job, right? So he's not that far away, and now he comes. So that's part of it too. Like, did the Cubs overspend? Were the Cubs negotiating against themselves? I mean, did they need to make this move? Because Craig Counsell clearly didn't want to go to the Mets. He wanted to go to Chicago because it's right in his backyard, and the Cubs are going to be big boy baseball while Milwaukee still is little kid baseball as far as spending money goes.
Right. And all of this, Dustin, started happening around noon today. The Mets announced that they were hiring Carlos Mendoza, right? And then the Guardians announced they were hiring Stephen Vaught as the skipper. And so those were the 2 teams that, you know, were most, you know, being mentioned for the Counsell job. Definitely New York with David Stearns out there.
Well, it just seems so obvious. It seems so obvious, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. But then all of a sudden, Ken Rosenthal throws this Twitter up here. Craig Counsell will manage the next season, but not the Brewers or Mets, sources tell The Athletic. He is heading to a team with an existing manager. Okay. Then all of a sudden, I sat there and I was like, And this is what I tweeted out there. I said, I know it's not going to be the Cubs, but I can still hope.
Wow.
About a few minutes later, Cubs hiring Counsell, Craig Rosenthal, sources tell The Athletic. And so, Dustin, the one thing I keep thinking about, you mentioned Rick Renteria. Remember that they all said Rick Renteria is coming back. Rick Renteria is coming back. And all of a sudden, when that Andrew Friedman had an opt-out, or Madden had an opt-out in his contract if Friedman left the team, and Jed and Theo jumped on a plane and headed down to Florida and ended up on a beach somewhere and getting that deal done. You have to do that. But what about the cojones on Jed Hoyer to literally sit there? Imagine in today's day with social media and everything like that, I did not hear a single solitary word that Counsell might even possibly go to the Cubs. Think about that.
Never did I see that happening. And we've had a lot of fun, I think, on this podcast. I know on the Mully and Haw show, we hear a lot about Craig Tember and Craig Tember and Craig Tember. Well, what about Craig Tober? Okay. Now he's won the division, but his record in the postseason, not very good, Crawly. Not very good. So is it just about getting to the playoffs? I thought the Cubs were more than wanting to just get into the playoffs. He is 7-12 in the postseason. 7-12 as a manager.
I have no doubt about that. And, here's the thing is that the Brewers have been to the playoffs 5 times in the last 6 years. Would you be happy with that? In a crappy-ass
division.
The Cubs didn't do it?
But the Cubs were in a total rebuild, Crawly. They were in a rebuild during the last 5 years.
They weren't in a rebuild in 2018 when they made it, and they took the Dodgers to Game 7, and the Dodgers ended up in the World Series. They weren't in a rebuild in 2019 when the Nationals sat there and when they played the Nationals in the wild card game and a fluke play ended up costing them and the Nationals won the World Series. It wasn't a fluke in 2020 when they ended up playing the Dodgers and the Dodgers won then. And what about 2021? Then is when the rebuilding started. So you had 2018, 2019, 2020 when you had Javier Baez, Chris Bryant, you had Anthony Rizzo, all these guys on the team, and somehow Craig continued to win.
Somehow, some way. And listen, I don't blame the Cubs for blowing it up. I just, you know what I really want now? I was going to save it, but this is what I really want. Okay. I want David Ross to be so red-assed about this that I want David Ross to jump up 294 North, okay, and become the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. You want to put some fire on this thing? You want to put some gasoline into this rivalry that already exists? The Brewer fans that don't want to sell tickets to anybody outside of the zip code or the area code and all that kind of stuff. Super crappy. Okay. So you really want to stir the pot and get this thing going like WWE style? Let's have David Ross wear number 3 up in Milwaukee and become the Brewers manager. How about that?
That would definitely be interesting. And
I'll
tell you what is interesting as well is, Counsell's contract is going to be 5 years, $40 million. That's an AAV of $8 million a year. And so Counsell is now the highest paid manager in the MLB.
Almost doubly high. The highest paid manager was $4.5 million. I think that was Francona. And now it goes from that to double.
Here's what I'm going to say, Dustin. Good. Because it's ridiculous, this whole idea of paying these guys cheap and kind of controlling them. I like the fact that you're paying for a manager. You and I talked about when Joe Madden was at Club 400, how much I missed him, what a smart guy, and how he always had the pulse of his team. And when I look at what Craig Counsell does, I say to myself, this is a guy that with what I said it the other day on the podcast, he takes goat piss and turns it into gasoline. He ends up with guys like Rowdy Tellez and all these guys that when I looked at every year, like you look at okay, who are the Brewers having left? Who do they have in center? Look at their infield. And I always say, how the hell is this guy doing this? And guess what? He's here right now. And I think this is a statement very much like it was in end of 2014, 2015, that the Cubs are ready to compete. And I will tell you, Craig Counsell didn't come here for the money. It wasn't about the money because he could have gotten more in New York. And yes, it's nice that he's close to his family, but he wants a team that is going to compete.
Well, and he's going to have a big part of it. There's no doubt about it, because there's no doubt in my mind, especially post Joe Madden and then David Ross, that the manager, the skipper, sets the tone. He sets the tone in that clubhouse. He sets the tone in that organization. It's going to start in spring training. We're going to see, what is the word out there about Craig Counsell? How is he viewed by Brewer players? They all talk. These guys all text. They all talk. Are his former and current players going to suggest anybody that texts them or reaches out to them, hey, yeah, you know what? You should go ahead and join the Cubs because you want to go for being with Craig Counsell? Or is it going to be, I don't know, guy's kind of a taskmaster? We're going to have to wait and see. I don't think Craig Counsell is the warm and fuzzies like Joe Maddon was.
Well, here you go. Well, Joe Maddon wasn't warm and fuzzies either. I can tell you that. That whole Grandpa Rossi thing was all just a joke within the clubhouse.
Joe Maddon.
Oh, Joe Maddon. Okay, yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you this. This is from William Contreras' Twitter. Obviously, Wilson's brother with the face palm. 3 face palms. William Contreras. Boom. So that tells you how happy the Brewers are right now. And so the Brewers
that's on them. I mean, that's on them. They let him get away, right? They had every opportunity, I'm sure. Obviously, we weren't involved in the negotiations, but he clearly wanted to stay in the area. So I'm sure if they would have just spent a little more or operated a little bit more as a big boy club, they're all making plenty of money. All these guys. It's how you manage your money. I mean, you got this story about the Padres who had to go take out a $50 million loan just to meet payroll. So it's just crazy.
Just remember, too, that managers don't count against your salary. It doesn't count against the.
Well, this is coming out, right? This is coming out of Tom. This is coming out of the Ricketts pockets, right?
Absolutely. And so when you're looking at this right here, it is definitely a big boy move. And again, you let him go. Whenever you have a manager, whether it was Joe Maddon in 2019 or whether it was Craig Counsell this year, you sit there and you don't pick up options or you don't extend their deals. That's kind of a slap in the face. All right. And so Joe Maddon said, okay, I'm a free agent. You remember that during 2019, he said, I'm a free agent this year. And sure enough, he got paid big money and went to Anaheim. And again, for Craig Counsell, he got to sit there and choose exactly where he wanted to go. Now, you want to talk about David Ross. This is what Jed Hoyer released. Now, we are going to get a press conference, I believe, sometime next week, correct?
Yeah, I think about maybe this time, maybe a week from Thursday. It's going to be later in the week, I'm told.
Okay, so what we got right now is that Jed Hoyer said, today we made the difficult decision to dismiss David Ross as our major league manager on behalf of the Cubs organization. We express our deep gratitude for David's contributions to our club, both on and off the field, first as a player and then as a manager. David continually showcased his ability to lead. David's legacy will be felt in Chicago for generations, and his impact to our organization will stack up with the legends that came before him. That seems a little much, but legend.
Yeah, I mean, he's a legend. I mean, he hit a home run in Game 7 of the World Series the last time he ever went to the plate as a Major League Baseball player. That's pretty legendary.
That's pretty cool. But when I talk about legends, I think about Andre Dawson, Billy Williams, Ryan Sandberg. Those are the guys that, when I say legends, he was a great part of a fun story of a fun season. Same with Dexter Fowler, who hit a leadoff home run in that same Game 7. All those guys. I mean,
if you're talking Cubs legends, Dexter Fowler is going to go down as a Cubs legend. We go. All right. We go. I mean, Crawly, nobody likes Andre Dawson more than me. I loved Andre Dawson. I interviewed Andre Dawson the last time he played at Wrigley Field with the Marlins. I stood in front of his locker stall and sweated like a pig waiting for him because I was so nervous and it was so damn hot down there. Okay. And I had on like a long sleeve denim shirt and khakis. But, they didn't win with Andre Dawson. What did they win? Nothing. Nothing. I mean, Sammy Sosa is more of a legend than Andre Dawson as far as the Cubs lore goes. If you're ranking it, I love Andre Dawson, but he never won anything. Cubs never won anything with him.
Well, I do got to ask you now, Dustin, this becomes a interesting situation because on the last podcast, you and I both talked about what was going on as far as John Maley being added to the staff.
It is interesting, right?
And so you have John Maley, right? You have Andy Green. We talked about Andy Green interviewing for managerial openings, including the Guardians job that he didn't get. We talked about, the rotating hitting coaches and Dustin Kelly, having the job right now. The question now, and again, when you talk about Tommy Hotovy,
that's what I want to know right away. What's going on with Tommy? Now, in a comparison, Chris Bosio was a holdover when they made the Joe Maddon move originally, right? So Bosio stuck around. So that's something to keep in mind. So we'll see. I hope. I mean, Tommy Hotovy seems like the goods to me.
So all of those guys from the 2015, 16, 17 run, they all preceded Joe Madden. So John Maley, and these were not Joe hires. As far as Maley, Bosio, Gary Jones, all of those guys were not Madden hires. So I'm very curious again how many of Counsell's own people are going to be following him here. And I think that this is just really, really going to be interesting. And I'm curious to see, like you said, if Milwaukee was to hire David Ross, I think that would absolutely be
so great. That would be so. That would make me so. That would make me so happy. Crawly, as confounded as I am today about all of this, and I've got my daughter's David Ross jersey hanging up behind me. If you're not watching us, if you're only listening to us, just a makeshift memorial to David Ross. I'm not sure. Do we know? Did David Ross recently? I want to say he recently signed an extension. Was he going into the last year of his deal? This was
going to be the last year of his deal.
Okay, so they're only eating a year of David Ross to let him sit out for a year. You know, I heard Joe Girardi today on the Marquee Sports Network saying, you know, you're hired to be fired. That's part of the gig. You know, when you're hired to be a manager in any sport, you're hired to eventually to be fired. It's going to be, listen, Crawly, it's great. It's great for the Fly the W. It's great for 670 The Score. It's great for Cub fans. It creates a lot of interest, creates a lot of buzz. But if you don't get Bellinger, if you don't get an Ohtani, if you don't trade for a Juan Soto, if the roster doesn't change much from what it is today, I don't care how much magic dust Craig Tober is bringing down 294, it's not going to work. You might win the division, but so what? How good is the division? Not very good. Not
Dustin,
very good.
You and I both know that the trick of getting into the postseason, and Arizona just showed it, is you got to make it. So if you can't even get to that step, you got no shot.
Right.
So
the argument could be, now one of the arguments could be, if Craig Counsell had been the manager of the Cubs this past season, would the Cubs have been in the playoffs instead of the Diamondbacks?
It's a good question. If he would have let young guys play, which he has always done in the past, we talked about Canario sitting on the bench. We talked about Nelson Velasquez not really kind of getting a shot. So there's a lot of questions ideally that you could ask as how he would do it. But you also want to talk about how Milwaukee might be angry. The Cubs needed to ask the Brewers permission to speak to Counsell before November 1st. They did not do that. So this all came together in the last few days. That was Jesse Rogers reporting. So you got to imagine how they must be livid up in Milwaukee. And I will tell you, I got one more story before we move on, because we got all sorts of things that happened that we didn't expect.
Oh my God.
This is one more thing that we had. This was an old tweet from Adam McCalvey, who covers the Brewers. This is a quote from Prince Fielder. Prince Fielder asked to give an example of how Craig Counsell helped him as a teammate. And this was what Prince Fielder said, quote, "There was this one time I was thinking about bunting. He told me if I bunted, he would punch me in the face."
Yeah, I thought of you about the bunting. I also remember us playing the cut from Jed, I believe, on with Mully and Haw, where he was not exactly throwing his arms around the bunting that we had all been questioning. He's like, well, that's kind of David's idea. I don't know about bunting.
He doesn't want to give away outs, is what he said.
Doesn't want to give away outs.
I will just say this. I loved David Ross as a player in 2016. I thought after he retired, he wanted to go into broadcasting. I thought if that coaching was a career path, not just going out to see a player's rehab or something. If he really wanted to do that, I thought he should have started in the minors. That's what they made Ryan Sandberg do. They made Ryan Sandberg get on the bus and hit fungos and do all that stuff. I don't understand why they handed David Ross the keys with absolutely no experience. People will say, well, Craig Counsell didn't have any. He was a front office guy, and guess what? I got to see what he can do for the last few seasons, and I'm confident. This is not a guy who's never managed before. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. And I wish David Ross nothing but success in his next job, and I hope he comes back into the Cub fold at some point in time. I know this has got to sting for him right now. This has got to sting, but I'm really hoping that he can end up at one point in time coming back and being part of the Cub family again. It's going to take some time, but who knows what's going to happen.
Do you think he will manage again?
I do. I think he'll get another shot. I think he'll be better for it. I really do. So if that's what he wants, I think he's going to be able to do that. But you were asking, Dustin, a little bit about the roster. And so we talked about this on our last episode, about a lot of important dates, 5 days following the end of the World Series. And we got 3 different categories. We got free agents. We got the different options. And then we also have 40-man roster moves. So on November 2nd, 4 Cubs became free agents. Jeimer Candelario, we know that he is now officially a free agent. He signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with Washington. He was traded to the Cubs at the trade deadline for Kevin Made and DJ Hers. He slashed 251, 336, 471 with 22 home runs and 70 RBIs. We were all excited in the trade, but that back injury affected him. While he was with the Cubs, he only slashed 234, 318, 445 with 6 home runs and 17 RBIs. So, Dustin, we didn't see the best of what Candelario had, but he is now officially on the market.
That's okay. Let's see what the market says about him. But, I don't want him to be the answer at first base. I want Cody Bellinger to be the answer at first base. I really do. And I want PCA out in center. And I don't think Candelario is a good enough guy to play third base. I didn't see enough from him at third base anyway, my opinion.
Right. It's something that if you can get a bopper at first, I'd definitely be curious about Candelario at third. Michael Fulmer signed a 1-year deal for $4 million. It was okay. We talked about that. 3-5 with a 4.42 ERA. He did really bad in April and May, better in June, July, and August. But in September, he went on the IL, and he is out for all of 2024 anyway with right elbow surgery. And then we had 2 free agents that are, they only played the last weekend of the season pretty much. Tyler Duffy. He was a Twin. He played in that last game in Arizona. And then you had Sean Green. He was a journeyman who played, so no big loss there. But the one that we want to talk about, Dustin, are the player/team options. And we had 5 players fall into this category. The first one was the Cubs with their club options. The Cubs exercised their club options on Yan Gomes, who did great this year. His receiving skills, blocking balls, calling games, always phenomenal. His 29.4% caught stealing rate was second among NL catchers. And then he slashed 267, 315, 408 with 10 home runs and 63 RBIs. Dustin, that was the second most of his career.
Right. And it always seemed to be hitting when guys were in running scoring position. He seemed like clutch hitting and him were hand in hand.
Right. He'll continue to work with Miguel Amaya to transition the load. And there's a lot of young catchers coming up like Pablo Aliendo and Moises Ballesteros. So the Cubs are going to pay him $6 million in 2024.
Less than the manager.
The Cubs also exercised their club option on Kyle Hendricks. Hendricks is back from a shoulder strain on May 25th. He went 6-8 and 374. Once off the IL, he took the ball every 5th day, and he kept the Cubs in it most games except against the Braves. So he's going to be an excellent 4th or 5th starter. He's a great resource for the young pitchers that are going to try to break into the rotation. They're going to pay him $16.5 million in 2024. He's the longest tenured Cub now, the last of the remaining 2016 Cubs. And so glad to see Hendricks back. I think we both knew that was going to happen, but we also both thought Ross was going to be back.
Yeah, we also thought there was going to be another starting pitcher that's coming back. We're going to talk about him in a second.
Right. And the Cubs did finally decline their $5 million option on Brad Boxberger. He was injured most of it, and that was just a disaster.
This will be interesting now, though, with Boxberger, right? Like, does Counsell really like him? Because he came from Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, he came. He's come for a couple teams. He only threw 20 innings for the Cubs, but he did play for Milwaukee previously. And I think that they're going to, if he's still out there, they might kick the tires on him, but they're not going to exercise that, a $5 million option.
No, don't blame him for that. No doubt.
Now, Dustin, the 2 player options, which everybody wanted to hear from. It surprised nobody that Cody Bellinger opted out of 2024. The Cubs signed Cody to a $17.5 million deal. And a 1-year deal in December with a mutual option. That mutual option would have paid him $25 million in 2024. He struggled the previous 3 seasons with the Dodgers, and they let him walk out the door. They did not tender him a contract in 2023. So he signed a 1-year prove-it deal with the Cubs, and boy, did he ever, hitting 306, 26 home runs, 29 doubles, 97 RBIs, and 27 steals. Excellent defense in center field and first base, and he wins the Comeback Player of the Year award. The Cubs just a couple hours ago offered Cody the qualifying offer of $20 million, which he turned down, obviously. So if the Cubs do not re-sign Bellinger, they will get a compensation draft pick. The Cubs have said they're interested in re-signing Bellinger, but Cody and Scott Boras are certainly looking for a big year, multi-year big money contract, right?
Oh God, I mean, Crawly, he wants $300 million, right?
At least 200 to 300 million.
Yeah, we all do.
Right?
We all do. Yeah, we all do.
But like you
I
said,
just have to play the lottery to get it. That's all.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's not going to be your athletic ability. It doesn't have to be Cody Bellinger coming back, but they need someone to fill in that offense, especially when you're talking about maybe a guy like Juan Soto or Pete Alonso or somebody, but you need boppers. And I was listening to the Parkinson Spiegel show on my way home, and Coomdog, a friend of the pod who's been on before, he was there, and he absolutely said he expects from what he's hearing that the Cubs are going to get a bopper. So let's just kind of keep our fingers crossed that works out. The other shocker, Dustin, was Marcus Stroman opts out of his final year of a 3-year, $71 million contract. Made $25 million in 2022, $25 million in 2023, and he was set to make $21 million in 2024, but decided to test his luck in the free agent market. Dustin, how shocked were you at that one?
Almost as shocked as I was about Craig Counsell and David Ross, but that was more shocking. I was shocked. Again, I had to double check the source when I saw it at first. I thought I was getting duped by a fake Twitter account.
Well, Stroman was dominant in the first half of the season, going 9-6 pre-All-Star game with a 2.96 ERA and named to the All-Star team. The second half, totally different story. We know that he struggled. He spent a lot of the time on the IL. He was 1-3 post All-Star game with an 8.63 ERA. Stroh's Cubs career numbers were 16-6 with a 3.73 ERA, 50 starts, 275.1 innings. I think, when I looked on Stroh's Instagram, he wrote, "Love everything about Chicago. Grateful for the Cubs organization. Thankful to have experienced Wrigley and the fan base. The consistent energy was incredible. Life is a journey. Excited for whatever comes next." There was no pictures or anything to it. It was just white words on black background. But one thing that caught my eye, Dustin, is that in Bob Knight.
Absolutely.
To bring back starter Marcus Stroman after he declined his $21 million option in 2024. Thoughts, Dustin?
Yeah, obviously the Cubs are clicking their heels that he declined. They didn't want him back. We wondered out loud on this podcast, do the Cubs want him back? Are the Cubs hoping that he opts out? And we weren't exactly sure. And I don't think they wanted him around. He doesn't have swing and miss stuff. He got injured. He broke down. I don't think he's Mr. Clubhouse guy. And I know I joked around being ticked off that he didn't show up to the Cubs con, but I do think that kind of stuff matters to the Cubs, big picture.
I think
that
so.
Kind of stuff matters.
I do think so as well. Yes.
Right. It's all part of it. Now, I think they would have taken the high road. They would have welcomed him back, but no, I would be, there's no way he's going to be back with the Cubs.
In the first half of his first year of the contract, he was injured a lot of the time and had issues. And then the second year of his contract, the second half, he had issues. And so, I understand this and I wish him well. He's, and I think the Cubs are looking for someone with swing and miss stuff. I don't know who it's going to be, but Dustin, there's a lot of young players, and our guest who's about to come up next is going to tell us about the Arizona Fall League.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2. It's episode 85. Ross is out. Counsell is in. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Right now, Crawly's talking to Rich Biesterfeld of Northside Bound. Rich was out in Arizona Fall League's Fall Star game and Home Run Derby. He's going to tell us about what went down for Cubs prospects representing the organization this past weekend.
Rich, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we are stunned and we are shocked, but we're glad to be talking Cubs baseball.
Kind of a crazy day.
So let me ask you, Rich, you're a guy that's out in Arizona. You're at the complex all the time, and you get to know everybody, essentially. What are your thoughts on the David Ross firing? How shocked were you, and what are you thinking in your head now?
Yeah, I think my thoughts echo a lot of what you guys have said and what I've read from others. I thought he might have been on a little bit of thin ice towards the end of the season, but when they didn't relieve him of his duties at the end of the season, I thought, okay, he's going to be back next year, but probably on a short leash. So really didn't expect to see that news today about hiring Craig Counsell, but I'm excited. I think there were some questions with David. I think you guys touched on the way he used the bullpen, the way he didn't use a lot of the young guys. So I'm hoping to see some changes with that with Craig Counsell. So, but we'll see what happens.
And Rich, nobody knows the young guys like you do. You're out, like I said, you're out at the facilities. And so for people that don't know, we've had people talking about the Arizona Fall League and what a great opportunity that is for players to get extra at bats and pitchers to get extra work in. And so this weekend, tell everybody a little bit about what the Arizona, what the Fall Star Game is.
Sure. With the Fall Star Game, it's kind of like the All-Star Game for the Arizona Fall League. And that happened last night, and it was held at Sloan Park, which was kind of fun. But and the Cubs were represented by James Triantos and Kevin Alcantara. Didn't have any pitchers on the squad, but definitely a very fun game, 9-inning game. I think, I'm trying to think the final score, American League won 6-3. Our south side of town rivals, they had the MVP, Colson Montgomery from the White Sox, was the MVP of the game.
Oh, Rich. So I've heard a lot about Colson Montgomery, so that had to have been fun to watch. He's a good kid, too.
Very nice guy. I got to talk to him in the dugout one night.
Well, I'm taking a look here, and you have red carpet pictures of Kevin Alcantara and James Triantos. And, you know, when you talk about Triantos, I feel like this AFL has been his breakout this year. He has been absolutely on fire. What do you think is clicking for him right now?
The talent has always been there. I think for folks that follow the Cubs prospects, I mean, he was a second round draft pick, out of high school, and I think he had to have some knee surgery, so he got a little bit of a late start to the season. So I think that maybe slowed him down a little bit. I think he might have had a little bit of a hand issue during the early part of this season as well, but that wasn't really publicized. But I think he's fully healthy now. He's always had a really good eye, and he's just attacking. And just, he hasn't stopped hitting since the Fall League started.
Yeah, he is slashing 425, 505, 700. He has 3 home runs, 15 RBIs, and he's struck out 14 times, but walked 12. I think the big question, is not can Triantos hit? Because I think we always have known that he can hit. I think the big question, and Rich, maybe you can help us out here, is just where is he going to play? I know they've done, second, third, out center field even? Where do you see him playing?
If I had to guess right now, I think he looks most comfortable at second base. I've heard some people question, does he have the arm for third base? I think he does. I think a lot of it is just to put him in one spot and let him get comfortable. Because I believe that in low A, he played mostly third. I think this past year in high A at South Bend, he played a lot of second. But just giving him that one spot where he knows he's going out and can focus on the defense. That's the big question with him. But the kid's an incredible athlete. He's whatever the baseball counterpart to a gym rat is, that's him. He lives, eats, breathes the game. Just a good kid and works really hard.
Well, Rich, not only do they have the All-Star Game or the Fall Star Game like in MLB, but they also have the Home Run Derby, and representing the Cubs was Kevin Alcantara. And then for the podcast listener, I'm putting all of Rich's pictures up, and you got to follow Rich at Beast22 on Twitter because he always has the best pictures. But I just love Kevin Alcantara. Just like I keep saying, he reminds me so much of Soriano in that tall, lanky, wiry, build. How did he do in the Home Run Derby?
He struggled a little bit, honestly. I think he only ended up with five or six through the 2 rounds. And was actually even talking to a friend of mine at the Fall Stars game last night, and he kind of gave me a heads up. He said, some people were kind of talking smack about him. Oh, he didn't hit very well, and what's wrong with the thing to remember always, it's a home run derby. This isn't what these guys normally do in a game. They're not always trying to pull it, but he was hitting line drives. He wasn't getting the lift. And then even one of the folks who works for the Fall League, I was talking to him last night, and he said even the pitcher, the guy who was throwing to him, wasn't really getting it where he wanted it. He wanted it more inside, and the guy kept throwing him more outside stuff. So, all those things play into it. It's fun. It's great to see, you love your guy to win it, but it's like, you can't get too excited. That really doesn't tell you anything about the skills and abilities of that player.
We got a question from Brad Hebe. He says, what is Alcantara's potential ceiling? Are you seeing him as a potential 30-30 guy, Rich? I
think he's got that potential. I think it'll be interesting because he moved up at the very end of the season, and for the playoffs, he moved up to Double-A. That's more that proving ground. I mean, you love to see the young guys do well at every level. But Double-A is where you start to see a little more separation. So kind of want to see what he can do at that level. The pitchers get more dominating, a little bit tougher to hit off of. But I think, he definitely has the speed. He's got the power. He's one of those guys that if you're at a game, you better, if somebody's like scrolling to their phone, you better put that down and watch when he comes to the plate, because, he's going to hit some shots. Had fun the one night where he just hit a moonshot, and then he kind of did the bat flip. And I was fortunate enough to catch that bat flip as well, kind of behind him. So he's just a fun player to watch. Great personality. Cub fans will love him. Yeah, he's just got that it factor about him. You can't really describe it, but when you see him, you're like, and with the nickname, the Jaguar and all that stuff. Yeah. But one picture that you took, Rich, that I wanted to share, which was totally awesome, is all of the teammates that came out to support Alcantara and Triantos. Tell our listeners who's all in this picture here. Oh, yeah, and because there's some that aren't even in that picture. But in the picture itself, you've got Pablo Aliendo, Jose Romero. Jose's one of the pitchers representing the Cubs in the AFL. Moises Ballesteros, Kevin, James Triantos, and then you've got one of their Mesa Solar Sox teammates from the Yankees, Caleb Durbin. But even in the background, you've got Mark Weissman, who's one of the strength and conditioning coaches. We had J.P. Wheat, Christian Franklin, Steve Polikoff, who's one of the hitting coaches. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some other guys. Luis Ruano. There were probably close to 10 guys out there just, to watch Kevin and support him. That's awesome. And if you heard Dustin and I talking a little bit earlier, and we were talking about kind of the moves that were made, Stroman and Bellinger, the Cubs also made some 40-man roster moves, and they've outrighted Jared Young, Jeremiah Estrada, Nick Birdie. So they are off the 40-man roster. You know that Birdie had that appendix surgery, and Estrada and Young, they were up and they kind of struggled this. At least I know Jeremiah struggled a little bit until September. Right. But Birdie cleared waivers, and so he's back with the iCubs. Okay. But Jeremiah Estrada, who I thought was fantastic, I was so looking forward to the season. He got picked up by the Padres, so they got a good one. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I both those guys, great human beings. Love them to death. I have nothing but good things to say about both of them. I hope the best for them. Absolutely. And the Cubs also added infielder Luis Vasquez to the 40-man roster, which is now currently at 37. And so Vasquez split some time between the Smokies and the Iowa Cubs in 2023. He's the 21st rated Cubs prospect. Tell our listeners a little bit about Luis so that they're familiar with him now. Yeah. Incredible glove. Has usually played short. It'll be interesting to see if they give him a look at third, possibly. Because I think he's got the defensive chops to be able to do it. But I know Alex Cohen, the broadcaster from Iowa, just raves about it. The defense has greatly impressed him. And over the last, especially at Iowa this year, but even the year before at Tennessee, the bat started to come around as well. So I was very happy for him because I think he's a guy that they probably would have lost if they did not put him on the 40-man. Well, we're going to keep watching that, Rich, and I appreciate you hopping on here to give us a little information about the Arizona Fall League and the Fall Star Game. Rich, I want to do what you do, and that's when I retire. I want to come out to Arizona and see all these things, and hopefully you and I can have a couple of beers out there. But we do have our Mesa trip in the calendar. We awesome. Are ready for you. We are ready to invade, so hopefully you're ready for us. I think Stu and I might be coming at the same time, so you may have to get some
you may have to get some emergency services out there. I don't know what Mesa has to do to prepare. Rich, tell our listeners where they can find your work, your photographs, and some of the writing that you do.
Sure. On as mentioned on Twitter and Instagram, my handle is Biest22, Biest22, and also collaborate with folks at Northside Bound, do some writing on there, and feature a lot of my photos as well. So hopefully I'll have some more stuff coming out from the Home Run Derby. Been working on that all day, and haven't even had a chance to touch base on the from the Fall Stars game yesterday yet, but I got a bunch of stuff coming from that too. So
our buddy Stu McVicker says he cannot wait, and also Bill Watts from Fly the Wood will definitely be out there. So absolutely great talking to you, Rich, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you out in Mesa. If you don't come to CubsCon, I'm just saying you might want to come. Take care, bud.
Very good. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. You are listening to the Fly the W 670 podcast. It's season 2. It's episode 85. We're always going to remember this one. Ross is out. Counsell is in. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. All right, Crawly. So we've had the Marcus Stroman news. We knew we were going to talk about that. We had the roster news. We knew we were going to talk about that. We had gold gloves being handed out on Sunday night. We knew we were going to talk about that. We didn't know we were going to talk about David Ross being fired. We didn't know we were going to talk about Craig Counsell being hired. But now it's time to get into award season and really talk about some amazing hardware going out to some of our favorite Cub players. This has never happened to the Cubs before. 3 gold gloves on the same team awarded last night.
It's unbelievable when you think about it, Dustin. When you think about the some of the teams, like that 2016 was probably the best defensive team I ever saw. So to think that the Cubs have never had 3 gold gloves on one team is unreal. The awards kicked off first with Cody Bellinger, who was voted the NL Comeback Player of the Year by his peers for the Players' Choice Awards. He beat out Michael Conforto and Bryce Harper, so now he can add that to his free agent resume. Not only did he win the award, Dustin, that also kicked in an additional $1 million that was in his contract. So the Cubs are paying him an extra $1 million for winning that award.
Just hopefully not on the way out. Hopefully not on the way out, right?
Hopefully they keep
another $1 million to spend around Wrigleyville.
Now, unfortunately, our guy Justin Steele did not win for NL Pitcher of the Year. That went to Blake Snell. Zach Gallen was also nominated, but what a season for Justin Steele, and just, looking so forward to see him build on that for next year. But as you said, last night, the Rawlings gold gloves were handed out, and we had no doubt Dansby Swanson, right? I think he was going up against
Crawly safe bet. Yep,
safe bet. Francisco Lindor and Esquivel Tovar of the Rockies were up there, but Swanson led all shortstops in defensive runs saved, and he led the entire major leagues in out above average. So one of the best defenders, period. So no doubt on Swanson. He gets it 2 years in a row. But the one that got me so excited, the one that had me with butterflies in my stomach, was when they announced the second baseman. And that went to Nico Horner, who won his first Gold Glove award, beating Bryson Stott of the Phillies and Ha-Seong Kim of the Padres. Dustin, that was a fun one, and we have some audio from that moment where he talked about winning that first Gold Glove.
It was so exciting and an amazing thing to share with Ian and Dansby, obviously, and just a couple people I really want to thank. Definitely want to thank Jonathan Moda, who's been with me since I was first drafted with the Cubs, a huge part of this. Andy Green, who does all of our positioning and work behind the scenes in the infield, and then definitely my dad, who's hit the biggest bulk of fungos in my life, and a lot of time and effort into that. So any award like this just involves so many people. So very cool.
We had no doubt when they signed Dansby and Nico was moving to second. We just said to ourselves, this is going to be something special, and that's exactly what we saw this season. It was so fun.
Yeah, they're great guys. It's a great double play combination. Hopefully for the next 5-6 years, they will be the best duo out there in the National League.
Yeah, and this is what Dansby said about
it is so exciting and an amazing thing to share with.
Nico's so good coming across the bag, like it afforded me the luxury to play and cut off more balls in the 6 hole. Like it was like kind of he basically had he would like my forehands essentially, like he would be able to cut down on those, so I could worry more about the balls hit at me or to my to my right. And I feel like that just made a huge difference for our group. I'm so excited for Nico getting his first. Like, he earned every bit of it. He just impacted the game in so many ways for us this year, all around, but especially defensively, and just what he was able to do. First year pretty much playing, kind of making that full transition back over to second base is just he made it look so much easier than it actually is. And so for him to be able to get rewarded in the way that he did is pretty cool.
I love we talked in spring training how Dansby was insistent on being on the field every time Nico was in spring training. They wanted to get as many reps. They were literally inseparable. Like, every time somebody like Rich Biesterfeld took a picture in spring training, those two guys were walking together. And I thought it was cool to hear how Dansby felt that what Nico brought, to allow, to cover him on the right-hand side, up by the second base, which allowed Dansby to move a little bit closer into that, like, what do they call it? The 5.5 hole that Tony Gwynn used to always hit it into. You know what I mean? So really cool to see how that's working out for them.
Yeah, Dansby Swanson's just class act, right? I mean, all about his teammates, not about him. Just a class guy.
Yeah, and finally, Ian Happ won in left field. I got to tell you, Dustin, that was the one that we were kind of like, meh. Well, they probably put him up because
it's
whatever.
The defending guy, right? Yeah.
But he won, and I was absolutely stunned. I thought that he took a step back this year. I was shocked just that he even got nominated, but to win it, that's a totally different ballgame. You know what I mean?
Yep, I was shocked. Do you know who he was going up against? Who were the finalists for that, Crawly?
Oh, I had it, and now I can't think of it. It's right in my head. But if you want to go, we'll go ahead and listen to what he had to say about winning the Gold Glove. And like I said, man, he did it. So let's see what he had to say here.
Super, super special. Win the first one was really awesome, but to be able to back it up with another one, and have that on the resume, I think that's a really special thing. To be able to do it in Wrigley again, and twice in a Cubs uniform is a pretty cool thing that I'll cherish. Yeah, I don't know if I adjusted a ton. I think sometimes you just got to play it out. Definitely the throwing helped this year. Threw a bunch of guys out. Nico made a bunch of really good tags at second base, and a couple guys at home that were big, kind of in that June, July, August stretch. And I think that was a big part. Last year I ran balls down really well, and this year I threw the ball really well. And sometimes you're going to have those opportunities and not the other ones. So I think that's just kind of how it shook out this year.
Yeah, he was second among NL, as far as left fielders are concerned. He got the highest number of putouts of his career. So that was good there. But, hey, he won it. And so 3 Cubs winning the Gold Glove Awards, just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great news. That was great news to wake up to, go to bed to last night, depending on what your schedule is like. And Crawly, it's just an amazing day for Cub fans and for us at Fly the W. If you're just tuning in for some reason late, Ross out, Craig Counsell in, 5 years, $40 million for Craig Tober. Let's hope we got Craig Tember. Let's hope we can get Craig Tober. Finally, Crawly, the Cubs have got a little bit more business over at Wrigley Field. They're doing some stuff, and we had some news as Crane Kenny was on with our guy Bruce Levine.
Yeah, they're going to be full renovation of the roof. They're going to be replacing wood beams with steel. So this project expected to be completed by 2024. One final thing, I did yesterday have the honor of working the security party for the Chicago Cubs staff that was held at Club 400. The different supervisors and staff and security were all there, and we had an absolute amazing time. Frank Walker was the one that brought everybody over there. They had a bus full of all the employees that they brought from Wrigley Field to cool. Club 400. We played a little bit of a Jeopardy game. We had a couple drinks. But Frank Walker of the Mistaken Identity podcast, he came out and he was there's all sorts of fun raffles. And when you talk about Wrigley Field and the employees, they're the ones that are going to, that make Wrigley the friendly confine. So to have everybody out there, that was absolutely just phenomenal. And so one
of these days, Crawly, I'm going to have to get invited out to Club 400. That's all I know. I could have been security with a Mick Ultra in my hand too.
Well, you've been invited, but I need to get you out there. We did find out Ian Happ, David Peralta from the Dodgers, and Eddie Rosario were also up for the Atlanta Braves. I can't believe Yelich didn't, but who knows? But what an incredible 72 hours of Cubs news, Dustin. This has just been a blast.
Absolutely. Don't forget to download, listen, and review. Subscribe to the Fly the W podcast as we're wrapping it up here. Follow us on the socials, Fly the W on Facebook. Of course, we're on Instagram. We're also on Twitter. And you can email us, flythew670@gmail.com. And now you can watch us on YouTube by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. And make sure you're following us in case we go live again, because hopefully there's going to be more huge news coming up over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to have to do an instant live reaction podcast.
Yeah, this was something, and again, I think it's just the beginning. Get ready, Cub fans, because we're going to have a lot of fun this offseason. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!